ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्युर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्। ॐ भगवते रुद्राय नमः। ॐ भगवते শ্রীরামকৃষ্ণায় নমঃ। নমস্কার, শুভ অপরাহ্ন। রামকৃষ্ণ মিশন শিক্ষণ মন্দিরের পক্ষ থেকে আয়োজিত আজকের এই ওয়েবিনারে আমি শ্রী সোমেন দত্ত আপনাদের সকলকে স্বাগত জানাই। আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানে আমরা আমাদের মধ্যে বিশেষ অতিথি হিসেবে পেয়েছি কলকাতা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের শিক্ষা বিভাগের স্বনামধন্যা অধ্যাপিকা ডক্টর সন্তোষী হালদার মহাশয়াকে। মহাশয়ার আজকের বক্তব্যের বিষয় ইনক্লুসিভ পেডাগজি ফর টিচার এডুকেটর্স, সাইকোলজিক্যাল অ্যান্ড এডুকেশনাল বেসিস। ম্যাডামকে আরো একবার রামকৃষ্ণ মিশন শিক্ষণ মন্দির পরিবারের পক্ষ থেকে স্বাগত জানাই। আমরা ম্যাডামের বক্তব্য শুনব, কিন্তু তার আগে আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানের স্বাগত ভাষণ উপস্থাপনের জন্য আমি প্রথমে অনুরোধ করব আমাদের কলেজের পরীক্ষা নিয়ামক পূজনীয় শ্রীমৎ স্বামী উর্জিতানন্দ মহারাজকে। মহারাজ।
Am I audible?
হ্যাঁ মহারাজ, শোনা যায়। হ্যাঁ, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
ওম নমো ভগবতে রামকৃষ্ণায়। রামকৃষ্ণ মিশন শিক্ষণ মন্দির পরিবারের পক্ষ হতে আজ আমাদের প্রতিষ্ঠানের তরফ থেকে আয়োজিত এই বৈকালিক ওয়েবিনারে সকলকে স্বাগত এবং অভ্যর্থনা জানাই। আজকে আমাদের মধ্যে যিনি অতিথি হিসেবে আছেন ডক্টর সন্তোষী হালদার, কলকাতা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ এডুকেশনের অ্যাসোসিয়েট প্রফেসর। ওনার বক্তব্যের যে শিরোনাম সেটি হচ্ছে ইনক্লুসিভ পেডাগজি ফর টিচার এডুকেটর্স, সাইকোলজিক্যাল অ্যান্ড এডুকেশনাল বেসিস। আমি ডক্টর হালদারকে স্বাগত জানাই এবং উনি আমাদের কাছে ধন্যবাদ অর্হ বটে, কারণ ওনার অমূল্য সময় থেকে কিছুটা সময় উনি আমাদের জন্য দিয়েছেন সেই জন্য। এবং আমরা আশা করছি আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠান খুব সুন্দর হবে এবং ওনার যে বক্তব্য তার পরে আমরা প্রত্যেকেই আমাদের স্ব ধারণ ক্ষমতা অনুযায়ী আমাদের মনের মধ্যে একটা পরিষ্কার চিত্র ফুটে উঠবে ওনার বক্তব্যের বিষয় সম্বন্ধে এবং আমরা সমৃদ্ধ হব। ডক্টর হালদারকে আরো একবার উষ্ণ অভ্যর্থনা ও স্বাগত জানাই এবং প্রতিষ্ঠানের অন্যান্য অধ্যাপক যারা আছেন, নন টিচিং স্টাফ যারা উপস্থিত আছেন এবং ছাত্ররা যারা উপস্থিত আছে প্রত্যেককেই স্বাগত অভ্যর্থনা জানাই। যদি প্রযুক্তিগতভাবে সবকিছু ঠিকঠাক থাকে, কারণ এর আগের একটু ওয়েবিনারে কিছু সমস্যা হয়েছিল, যদি সবকিছু ঠিকঠাক থাকে তাহলে কিছু অডিয়েন্সের মধ্যে কিছু গেস্ট কেউ থাকবেন, তাদেরকেও আমি আগাম অভ্যর্থনা জানিয়ে রাখছি এবং ঈশ্বরের কাছে প্রার্থনা করি অনুষ্ঠান খুব ভালো হবে এই আশা রাখছি। সকলকে আবার অভ্যর্থনা এবং স্বাগত। নমস্কার। সোমেন স্যার, ওভার টু ইউ।
অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ মহারাজকে। এবার আমরা আমাদের অনুষ্ঠানের মূল পর্বে ফিরে যাব। আমি আগেই বলেছি যে আমাদের অনুষ্ঠানের আজকের মুখ শোনা যাচ্ছে মহারাজ? হ্যালো, শোনা যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ, আমরা শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
আচ্ছা, আমি আগেই বলেছি যে আমাদের অনুষ্ঠানের মুখ্য অতিথি হিসেবে আমাদের মধ্যে উপস্থিত হয়েছেন কলকাতা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের শিক্ষা বিভাগের অধ্যাপিকা ডক্টর সন্তোষী হালদার মহাশয়। ম্যাডামের শিক্ষা জীবনের সাফল্যের ইতিহাস সম্পর্কে যদি আমি সংক্ষেপেও বলতে যাই তাহলেও আমার 2-3টে সেশন এমনিই কেটে যাবে, তবুও সময় শেষ হবে না। তবু আমি কয়েকটি বিশেষ ক্ষেত্র এখানে উল্লেখ করব। ম্যাডাম এমফিল, পিএইচডি, পোস্ট ডক্টরেট উপাধি প্রাপ্তা। তিনি 2019-20 বর্ষে ইউএসএ নিউ ইয়র্কের কর্নেল ইউনিভার্সিটি থেকে ফুলব্রাইট প্রফেশনাল অ্যান্ড একাডেমিক এক্সিলেন্স ফেলোশিপ লাভ করেছিলেন। তিনি 2019 সালেই জাপানের সুকুবা ইউনিভার্সিটি থেকে জেএসপিএস ফেলোশিপ লাভ করেছিলেন। আবার 2018 সালে তিনি ইটালি থেকে রকিফেলার ফেলোশিপ লাভ করেছিলেন। 2018 সালেই অস্ট্রেলিয়ান হাই কমিশন থেকে এন্ডেভার অ্যাওয়ার্ড অ্যাম্বাসেডর এই উপাধিও তিনি লাভ করেছিলেন। এর মাধ্যমেই আপনারা বুঝতে পারছেন যে ম্যাডামের জ্ঞানের পরিধি কতদূর বিস্তৃত। তাই আমি আর আমার বক্তব্য দীর্ঘায়িত করব না। আমি ম্যাডামকে অনুরোধ করব, ম্যাডাম আপনার মূল্যবান বক্তব্য আমাদের সামনে উপস্থাপন করবেন এবং আমাদেরকে সমৃদ্ধ করবেন। ম্যাডাম।
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Shomin. নমস্কার স্বামীজি, প্রথমবার আপনার সঙ্গে ভার্চুয়াল মিট আপ, মেবি দিস ইজ দ্য ফার্স্ট টাইম. Thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me during this unprecedented time and uncertain time that we are all going through. First of all, can I just please pardon me, আমার বাংলাটা অতটা ভালো না, so if I can just, convey my talk in English. However, of course, I'm very happy to. Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me, and also because this talk is very close to my heart. So when Swamiji approached me that I need to speak on this particular topic, I really appreciate his endeavor as well, that he has thought of this particular topic, which is very, very pertinent during this time and also before that we 2019-20. So thanks a lot to the entire Ramakrishna Shikhan Mandir and to the all of the staff, the organizers to organize this webinar. And of course, welcome all of the students. I won't say students because you are going to be either teachers, either pre-service or in service. So I consider you people as my colleague. So not my student, but yes, of course, my colleague. Uh, I have been teaching for the last maybe more than 18 years. And of course, most of them are during those time are in University of Calcutta, my alma mater. And my work entails, yes, of course, it started with disability. However, right now I am focusing more on autism, but I started with women with disabilities. So during the course of this seminar or webinar for the next 45 minutes to 50 minutes, I would be taking you towards whatever experiences I have gathered, and maybe giving you certain scripts or snapshots through some of the case studies and also the findings that I have got through my research and the knowledge that I have gained with my exposures not only in India, also abroad. So I hope that it would be able to clarify, of course, for sure, inclusion and very, very important and crucial, pertinent parameters of inclusion, which are very crucial for us, for all of us teachers to understand. And I hope that you will be able to implement at least, a little bit also in your practice during your teaching time, wherever you will be going. And that will be my contribution. Thank you so much. সো আমি এবার আমার পিপিটিটা শেয়ার করছি and if there are any questions I'm very happy to take. However, if it is after my lecture, that would be more appreciable. But if you need something to just there, you just can't resist, then you, of course, you're most welcome to ask that at that particular time as well. Because when I start teaching when I start talking, I come in a flow. However, please let me know if I speed up a lot, because when I start teaching, this is one of my limitation, that when I come in a flow, then I just expedite a lot, and it may be sometimes very difficult for a lot to understand and keep pace with the speed. I'm going to share the screen right now. Okay, tell me if you are able to see my screen.
No, ma'am.
Yeah, wait. I'm trying. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am. Now it is visible.
Yes.
And tell me if it is also moving. It's moving?
No, ma'am.
No.
It's not moving. It's not moving?
No, ma'am.
So that's the problem.
ম্যাম আজ একটু
Ma'am, now
প্রবলেম
it is moving, ma'am.
Was this earlier as well, this problem? Let me start again, okay? Now tell me whether you are able to see this.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Now
ma'am.
it's moving.
No.
No, ma'am.
It's moving.
Yes, ma'am. Now
Yeah,
it is moving.
yeah. Now,
Yeah,
now,
the problem is this. So I am not sure what's happening, but if I go to a slideshow mode, even if I'm moving the slide, it's not going. Just tell me if it is going, moving, not moving, right?
No, ma'am.
Yeah. So that's the problem. So we have to go like this, but is it visible? Are you able to read?
Yes, ma'am. It is visible.
So Swamiji, if we go like this without this, full screen, is it okay for everybody to understand what is written?
Okay, okay, okay,
It's fine, right? But we
okay.
can try again
Ma'am,
once.
from our side, we can zoom it out. Not an issue.
Okay. So I'm going like this. Okay, fine. My pardon for this. Apologies. It actually happened another time during one of my another presentation. I don't know what is the reason behind this, but in other presentations, I never had this problem. So just once more, I had experienced this issue. But if it is visible, then we are good to go. So, okay, so not consuming any more time, let's start today's important, very, very important topic. And I'm sure that it's going to help you in your teaching and also understanding inclusion, which is a very, very important aspect of your curriculum as well as teacher educators. So inclusive pedagogy. Today, what I am going to do, because it's a huge, it may take like at least 2-3 classes or 2-3 hours to go into and take up all of the aspects and cover at least most of the very, very important and prominent aspects of what is inclusion and how to go about it, or what are the pedagogies which are there. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to take certain the background, some of the very, very important aspect which will be able to make you understand inclusion very clearly. Because as a researcher in the field for the last 18 years, I feel there is still a lot of confusion. There is confusion in terms of the terminology as well. And frankly speaking, even the policies, they have interchangeably used the terms, for example, inclusion, integration, segregation, seclusion. I'm very sure that these are some of those terms that you must have, come across uh, here or there or during your course, or you must have heard this term because these are very commonly used. Interestingly, there is very, very crucial line of difference in between these. And the point is that makes a lot of these application of inclusion also become, I would say, haywire. So are you able to see the next slide? I just moved.
Yeah, ma'am.
Highlight of
Yes,
today's
Yes, ma'am.
presentation.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So today we are going to, this is just a snapshot of what we are going to go through today. I'm going to talk a little bit on what is inclusion, and I feel there is a huge gap in the sense, a gap in terms of theory, what is there in documentation, how inclusion is conceptualized, and how actually it is applied in the real life scenario, and why this is so. What are the important parameters which indicates whether inclusion has taken place or not, and how there is this gap? What are the various factors in the context of India? That is very, very crucial and interesting as well at the same time for all of us. I would be taking a little bit on the current status of participation and as well as inclusion of the people with disabilities. Kindly note that inclusion for today's topic, I am just limiting it to disability, because inclusion in the broader sense, of course, includes many, many marginalized communities, not only in India, but which are spread out in different low, middle income regions and countries of the world. If we go and start making lists, we will find that there are so many communities starting from indigenous communities to socioeconomically disadvantaged to socioculturally disadvantaged to historically disadvantaged, and they are marginalized for many, many reasons. But we are not going to highlight those, and have limited my talk today just to disability. So just don't get confused or limit your understanding of inclusion only by disability, because when we are talking of inclusion, it means inclusion of all the people with diverse need. And when we are talking about diverse need, of course, it doesn't only accounts disability, but rather all sort of diversities which we know and which we don't know. I'm going to take a little bit on the historical trajectory of legislation and policies. Of course, there is a huge gap there as well, and how disability has been taken over by the government, and how it has been accounted, how it has been calculated, and what are the drawbacks, how it is so much governed and stirred by the policy makers and the politicians of the country as well. There are certain case studies and extracts which will make my point very, very clear. So we will be going through some of the snapshots which you will find interesting. And finally, of course, I will conclude with crucial key priorities or certain future directions. I want to make clear some of the current challenges of inclusion that we are facing today. And these are some of the very, very recent indicators which I found online. And this took place during this pandemic and or just recently before the pandemic. So 2020, 19, 2021. And these are the surveys which has been done during this period. So this makes my point very clear that these are the current challenges that we are facing right now. And these were also before. So if we talk about inclusion, of course, we have to see how many people with disabilities are enrolled in different grades or classes, starting from pre-primary to primary, secondary, higher education. And even if they are getting enrolled, whether they sustain or they are dropping out. So this is one of those surveys which has been done on, I think, 10 of the states of India during 2019-20 by Swabhiman survey. And they have accumulated a lot of data, I think more than 3,200 data. On this basis, they came to this conclusion that yes, currently, during this adverse situation, that expedite or that exaggerate whatever problems this marginalized community, when we are talking of disability, they face. So 56.5% of the children with disabilities are struggling to attend the classes. So they are very regular and irregular, and there are n number of reasons for it. While 77% of students would not be able to cope and would fall behind in learning, of course, the way that we are going, and it may go for the next 1 year or more. 43% of children with disabilities are planning to drop out because they can't cope with the online virtual mode. When it comes to literacy, of course, literacy is also one of the very, very important parameter and one of the stairs through which vertical mobility can take place and make so much of difference in one's life. Around 45% of people with disabilities are illiterate, and only 62.9% between the ages 3 and 35 have ever attended regular school. So approximately 50% of the people are still not there in the sphere of education, and this is one of the recent survey again, and it has been done by a PhD scholar from a Bengali girl, but doing a PhD in Vanderbilt University. This is a recent data, and she did her study. She is doing her study in India, on India. And this has been published in Cambridge Network for Disability and Education Research. When it comes to the performance, of course, the people who are enrolled, the people with disability who are enrolled and who are also sustaining, maybe not dropping out, whether their performance is at par or not. And when I say at par, okay, let's not compare this with the people without disabilities. But of course, we need to compare whether it is at par with their own abilities or not. So see, I have marked this like discrepancy between ability and achievement, which is a very, very crucial aspect. So if I am like 30% able, but actually I am not able to achieve 30%, that is a loss of a nation, loss of that particular person's ability. So we don't want everybody to come to 90% or 90% aggregate or achieving something of that higher level. But there has to be of kind of a parity in terms of what their ability is and what they are going to achieve or what they are achieving. And it has been found that the graph is very, very discrepant. When it comes to level of access, who else during this pandemic can be more affected adversely? Because these are the people who are not able to, when we are talking of people with disabilities, it is very, very difficult for these people to come online, sit in front of the laptop, and it is so difficult for the neurotypical people also to just be continuously online. And when we are talking of people with disabilities, there is a huge proportion of population who are disabled and who are below the poverty line. We can, of course, we can understand what is the plight of them when they don't have electricity, when they don't have technology in order to access education. And we are not talking of just during this time, but also before. And during this time, they have been completely, it has devastated. So these are very, very important and crucial aspects. So less than 40% of school buildings have ramps. When we talk of access, this is not this is not a data of during this pandemic time, but before that also, that 40% of the school buildings have ramps, only 40%. Now, that means 60% don't have ramps. What is the importance of a simple basic necessity that is ramp for a person with a wheelchair? We have to go and ask that wheelchair bound person. It makes whole lot of a difference if there is a ramp. However, it also don't take much of our cost. It doesn't need much funding, but just our attitudes that ramp is very, very necessary, as necessary that we need a stairs. Around 70% of schools have accessible toilets. That means we don't have also a most of the schools don't have it. So even if we go to the malls, let's talk of the malls also, you will find that not only for the people with disabilities, but also for the women who are pregnant, for the old age people also, or rather we all might have to face temporary disability in our lifetime. During that period, we need a ramp. So ramp is a basic necessity. However, a lot of us still don't understand the importance of ramp. And that is why it is not there, and creating so much of architectural hurdles and barriers in the way of access to education that they are not able to at least enter the building. Let's forget about the teaching and strategies. Now, of course, the lack of awareness is very, very important aspect, that a lot of people are still not aware of, I won't say that always the people without disabilities are trying to create obstacles in the way of people with disabilities. Sorry, without disabilities are creating obstacles with disabilities. But it is also the other way around, because there may be a lack of awareness for the people who have come in across with people with disabilities, or they have somebody in their families. It is very easier for them to understand what are their needs. So the final and the most prominent aspect, which I feel as a teacher, is, of course, the skill deficit. We all know that each and every school needs to be inclusive now. And when we talk of inclusive, yes, we mean by inclusive in all sense. However, if we go to the real scenarios, we would be able to see the gap that there are just very, very countable few schools where you will find that it can be called an inclusive school. Otherwise, it is just by term or by the term that it has been used inclusive, but the practical implementations are not there. Now, we can't actually blame the teachers as well, because I have seen that teachers are reluctant. A lot of teachers are reluctant because when they get a class where a kind of a heterogeneous group of students, where, certain students are having learning disabilities, some might be having autism, some might be having cerebral palsy, maybe mild also. But that affects because they are not skilled, they have never learned. Even the general B.Ed course actually gives, of course, I'm happy that a paper has been included, certain portions of inclusion has been included. But what about the practical implementation of it? Teachers or would-be teachers or the trainee teachers are just reading all these theoretically. Maximum, they are just going and visiting a certain center. But how about if you get a child who is having behavioral issues, who has mild autism, then how you are going to address, cater the needs of this particular child? These are very, very important, crucial issues that we need to understand, because if we can empower the teachers, a lot of the other, barriers, if it is infrastructural, if it is all of these, be balanced a little bit, or leverage, I would say, a little bit. So we are going to talk now on other aspects as well. And this is one of those picture which makes the point very visible, which I just touched, that the number of students with disabilities goes tapering at the apex, which is not very, very good. That means that, yes, we have this, India has always applied a kind of a twin track approach when it comes to disability. That it started with, like, it can be universalization of elementary education, it can be Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, it can be equalization of educational opportunities. Yes, we have Person with Disabilities Act 1995, and the recent one is RPWD, that is Rights for Person with Disabilities, that came in 2016. However, it has been always pushed through other policies. Of course, there is a lot of impetus on the enrolling the person with disabilities as well, and it has positively boosted that part. And these are some of the outcomes that you see. The enrollment rate in grade 1 has increased so much. So we have 89%, maybe the midday meals, maybe the other provisions, maybe the Kanyashri, there can be so many things which has affected positively. However, we are not able to sustain, and this actually just floods all of our initiative which we take for enrollment, because these people are not extending forward after class 10, and they are dropping out for various reasons, for multifarious reasons. And we really need to take a very, very serious lens to it, because only 2% are seen in higher education. And if you go above that in research or PhD, there may be more, just very, very scanty visibility of this important and valuable human resource. So disability by population, of course, we are right now standing at the threshold of 2021, when we should be able to see very soon, and the latest data on disability, and not only disability, the population and all of those, because these are all accounted together. If you see this, you will find that, yes, the movement or locomotor disability is the maximum proportion which is showing in data. I have to say always data, because WHO estimates that we have 10% of disability, should be estimated as approximately 10% of the people who should be having disabilities. However, when the national census reports only 2% of the people with disabilities. So what the prevalence which our national data is showing is only that which is getting identified. So it may not be the real estimation, and there may be so many who are still there, not even identified. So now we can understand that where they belong to and what is their plight. So the percentage distribution of students, if you see, just right now I showed you that locomotor disabilities or physical disabilities is one of the maximum proportion of the people with disabilities. However, see this scenario which gives us a very good picture of the number of people who are enrolled and who are studying in some or the other course, and the proportion of disability. So you find the maximum, that is 33%, is learning disability. However, if you see the motor disabilities, orthopedic is just showing 1%. So now where they are going, that itself means that there is a huge gap. The people with orthopedically disabilities, they are actually not even getting enrolled for many reasons. And we need to look more in depth into certain intersecting factors of our country. I want to take this slide, of course, because I felt that there is a lot of terminological confusion when it comes to inclusion and its real application. See, if you see the picture, it should make my point very clear. This is, just forget about exclusion, even if we take segregation. Segregation is, yes, you are segregating these people. Right now, we are not talking of segregation. Long back, when we were talking of, if you see the cascade system, the placement starts with residentialization or institutionalization, depending on the severity of disability. And these people were segregated in a separate place. And so this was the era of segregation. Then we thought of, no, these people should not be actually separated. They could come with us. And then we actually brought all these people into the mainstream. And this was the era of integration, which we still use. The word is still used. However, integration and inclusion has a wide difference. So you see, integration might be limited to just merely placing the people with disabilities in a mainstream education or different other scenarios. Maybe a sports meet which is happening, maybe a gathering, social gathering, and you are just inviting them, but they are just there sitting alone without getting participate. However, inclusion is not just integration. It is about participation. It is about thinking creatively, strategically, how we can include, how we can ensure equal participation of these people. If there is a debate, we have to think. If there is a sports, we have to think how I can include a person with a wheelchair also in the same sports. Maybe a little bit more extra time can be given. It doesn't make sense if you are separating them in everything, which is not very essential. So there is very, very crucial and line of difference between integration and inclusion. If we don't understand this as a teacher, of course, we are making a big mistake. Somebody drew this, and I found it very interesting. So if you just make it a little bigger, see, this is actually inclusion where you can't identify who is this or that, who is disabled, who is non-disabled, who is typical, who is neurotypical or not non-typical, whatever. And then integration, where you are actually asking these people to come. So integration sometimes, I'm not saying always, but sometimes can be more harmful than seclusion as well. Because you are including them, but they are seeing you, but they are not able to participate. And that makes their position more inferior. And that actually affects their self-esteem. However, when we talk of inclusion, they are all together and you can't identify, who is what. And this is the kind of world or environment that we want to create, where we will not stare or poke up if somebody seems to be different. And differences become part and parcel of our life. I'm making this a little bigger and then again go back. It is visible, right? Von Fenbrenner's ecological system theory. Anybody? Yes.
Yeah.
So as I wanted to share some of the very, very crucial bases from psychology and education, or intersecting these two subjects, which are very, very close to my heart. I feel that this is one of the ecological theory which has been proposed by Bronfenbrenner, and I'm sure that some of you must have heard of it. And this goes very well when we are talking of catering the needs of the people with disabilities in any setting. And why just people with disabilities? With any kind of diversities, even if it is not disability. But when we are taking a class and everybody is neurotypical, but still, do we pay a heed to where this child is belonging from, or what is the history of this particular person? However, it is so important to note, if we really want to make the right choice for that person, the right strategy for that person, and strike the right balance, bridging the gap. So Bronfenbrenner has taken this, has proposed this amazing system of environment, which actually includes these 5 important and crucial environment or sub-environments, which we all go through and come across throughout our lifetime. And there he has also laid down the hierarchy. So just to name and quickly going through this, the first one he has pointed out is microsystem. So the microsystem is the immediate family of that particular child, which can be family, school, health services, the peer with whom the child is mingling up, the neighborhood, daycare facility, religious organization, because these are some of the organizations or the members of these organizations which cause direct influence on the personality of the child. The next is the mesosystem. So the mesosystem is the interaction between all of these member organization within microsystem. So the family coming across school and the peer, neighborhood, and the intermingling and interaction of these also cause effect or impact the child's development and growth, which includes the attitude as well, which includes their understanding of what is normal and what is not normal. And the next comes the exosystem, which is the extended family and the neighbors. So the parents, the school board, the government, these are those organizations or agencies which are all actually not directly striking the child, but indirectly can cause a lot of effect. And then comes the macro system, which is actually responsible for creating the attitudes and ideologies of the culture where we belong. And culture is actually the trajectory of the history, and it becomes our habit down the years. And the last is the chronosystem. This is all of the environmental changes that have come across over the life course. And if we really need to strike the right balance and understand what is the need, why a child is behaving in such a manner. If a child is trying to strike attention, if a child is not sitting on the chair and is just having a lot of out of seat behaviors, if the child is coming into a lot of temper tantrums or other kind of behaviors, we have to minutely look into all of these systems first, so that to understand if a child is coming with a different accent and how this accent is coming and why this is coming, where that child belongs to. If we can understand this, we can also identify the trends through that particular historical trajectory of that particular child. And we would be able to draft a very, very true and realistic profile of that complete profile of the particular child. That is very crucial at the outset that we begin our teaching and learning. And when it comes to people with disabilities, of course, it is very, very important. It, of course, is very important for us as well. For example, if I analyze myself, my upbringing has been through different cultures because of my family hailing from army background. I have been exposed to different culture, different state, different religions, different regions, and whatnot. And this has, of course, impacted a lot, not only my grooming, not only my style, but my thought process, my attitudes, how I take multiculturalism, how I take inclusion, and what is my attitude towards all of these. Because I have grown with different culture people, different language people, celebrating all of the religions and of different regions. So this is very, very important to note. Then only somebody will be able to analyze my behavior and judge it, whether right or wrong. Because we are the product of our environment. We can't actually just cut out the environment from us and also cut out us from the environment, because this is a kind of vicious cycle and both are intersecting each other, and we are the product of this interaction. It is very important to note this. I have to take certain notable facts about maybe our country as well, because it impacts the people with disability as well. Now, according to the World Bank, there are 80 million people with disabilities in India. There may be a lot of discrepancy in the data that we see, WHO report, then the NSS's report. There are a lot of discrepancy. However, approximately there is 1 to 2% of the people with disabilities. Now, when I talk of India, I feel pride when I say that I belong to a country which is the second most populous country of the world. And why not I should do that? Because we have huge human resource. And if we have huge human resource, this is not something to just hide. That means that we have a lot of human resource and we can utilize it, of course, if we can utilize it. So India, of course, is an emerging superpower with billions of population. And why this is important for not only for us, but also for the entire world, because it is said to become or is the youngest country of the world. About 50% of the population is below the age of 25. Why this is very important to note the age of the population as well, of course, into policy framework. For example, during this pandemic time, who are going to get affected more and what is going to happen? The entire, planning about vaccination, dissemination, all these has impact on setting the criteria with age as well, the age of the population. And it goes, of course, with other things as well. So this is a very, very important, crucial time of our country that we have a lot of huge young population. And how we are going to utilize this young population, because after a certain time, we will arrive at that point when we will be the most oldest country of the world as well. And then we will not be having time that we have not utilized this particular era which we have just passed, like that. And a huge population, when we say, of course, it includes the people with disabilities as well. If our young generation is to a large extent disabled, are we what kind of parameters and planning we are doing for including these people, for their education, for the kind of provisions that we are making for the next 5 years? These are very, very important, because 20% of all youth in the developing world, which actually includes India, is just sitting idle. And when I say idle, that means they are not into education, employment, or even training. How we are going to utilize this young population after 5 years if they are not getting trained? So our main priority right now is to turn this young generation as employment generation and future agents of change. As I told, that it is very, very important to note the ecological setting of a particular person. Yes, it impacts the policy and planning as well. Let's take up India, which is so diverse. So if you see, worldwide, there are 2,170 billionaires in the world. However, interestingly, 103 of these billionaires, they stay in India. You can identify yourself, whose house we are talking of. At the same time, there is 1.2 billion people who are poor, poorest of the poor in the world. And out of that, 400 million people of that poorest of the poor, they live in India. That makes us 33% of the world's poorest live in India. And vis-a-vis, 4.7% of the world's richest also stay in India. And that makes a whole lot of a difference. Who are making the designing, who are making the policies, and how they are making it, whether that is reaching to the grassroots or not. These are some of the scenarios, and this is also India. Interestingly, it takes a while for me to make my colleagues who are overseas to understand, that this is also a part of my India and the same place where I stay, because a lot of them have this kind of a notion about India. And that we have this contrasting kind of, setting in the same place, same region, it is just out of their, visibility sometime. So the unequal distribution of wealth, of course, this is very, very important when we talk of disability. The concentration of wealth is at the top. So our society is like this kind of a triangular. And if you see the developed countries, say US or UK, you will find that this triangle to be upside down. So there are most of the people as rich and very, very few at the tapering at the bottom. So their policy and planning are not going to filter the same way if we apply those plannings here in India. It has to be something different. At the same time, in our different states also, there are these different kind of diversities. If you talk of Kerala as well, they are completely different than you take vis-a-vis Bihar or Rajasthan. The scenario might be a little different. At the same time, we have this intersecting factors which are very, very crucial when we talk of India. We have this Brahmins, Kshatras, Vaishyas, Shudras, and the social stratification which has come over. And because of these also, there is a lot of impact on the people with disabilities because a lot of people with disabilities hail from this background at the bottom. And the reason may be so many. And whether the policy and planning is filtering down to this bottom level or not, and if not, then what we need to do, these are also very, very important consideration that we need to do. There is quality of life indicators. A lot of research has been done on this particular area. Quality of life is, of course, tuned with the happiness scale as well. And these are some of the indicators which has been identified by WHO that we can, if we just assess these parameters, we will be able to understand whether the well-being of that particular person. It has been found that most of these parameters of quality of life are not at par with the people without disabilities when we assess the people with disabilities. So they are very, very laid backward in all of these quality indicators. If it comes to material well-being, if it comes to bodily well-being, social well-being, personal or psychological well-being as well. So improving the quality of life and what we are going to do, these are also very, very important consideration. The Human Development Index, if you see, you will be able to see that the disability rate is higher in the district with high Human Development Index. This is a different kind of a scenario that I'm giving because usually it is a little bit different, but the data itself says that this may be due to the good reporting in these areas. Because if we see the disability status vis-a-vis rural and urban, we will find that most of the people are belonging to below poverty line areas and regions. So sometimes there are other intersecting factors also which are playing, and we can't just get aloof by these. So these are the literacy rates. So if you compare the male to female or female to male, and then with to without disabilities, you will be able to understand that yes, people without disabilities are just falling back in terms of literacy. Even when you compare the women with disabilities and men with disabilities, there is a huge gap. So when we talk of the gender gap report, yes, our country is just at the bottom. And this is very important because there is a very, very positive association with women with disability, education, poverty. And this is a vicious cycle. I would show some of those through my case studies as well. So when we talk of women with disabilities, of course, they face triple jeopardy because of their gender, because of their disability, and because of their birth in a developing country like India. So they face tremendous hindrances because of the structural, psychological, and socio-cultural barriers. If you see the gender discrimination in India, of course, you will find that the women are not earning, they are illiterate, they are anemic. And this has to do with the nutritional aspect as well, which is very, very closely associated with disability. Let's talk a little bit on the policy. So the question of disability, if you see the history, you will find that sometime it was canvassed in some of the census and then it was not there. The number of disability which was covered was also different. So if you see from 1872 to 1931, the question of disability was actually canvassed, which is a very good thing. However, the question of disability was not there in the census from 1941 to 1971. Again, in census 1981, only 3 types of disability was collected. Then again in 1991, it was dropped. In 2001, the question was again included, and information about only 5 types of disability was collected. And the latest 2011 gives us an estimation of only 7 categories of disability plus 1, which is just others. So 8 categories of disabilities. We are hopeful with the RPWD Act, which is going to come in 2011, because we have increased the number of disabilities to 21 categories of disabilities. However, why this discrepancy? This has to do with a lot about government and the way the question of disability has been understood or taken seriously by our governing, the government, I would say. As I told that India has always taken a twin track approach, and it also accounts when it comes to population enumeration, because it has been done, population is counted and also disability is counted together from door to door. There is no such health services by the government which goes door to door and identify people with disabilities. Rather, they go and ask if you have a person with disability or not. So whether these people are aware of it, the way the question of disability is actually expressed, reflected, when it comes to whether I would actually reveal that I have a daughter who have disabled or not, that also is stirred by a choice. And that choice is again impacted by what provision am I going to get if I express that I have a family member who has disabled, or rather it will actually just jeopardize my daughter's life and my life and other members of my family. So whether I would reveal that I have a person with disability or not, that is also again intersected by the socio-cultural makeup of our country. So you see, these are some of the very, very important questions. At the same time, the question of normality, which is very, very important, which I feel that whether we understand normality very well, how normality has been conceptualized can be shown very well with this Gaussian curve, where we have always tried to decide normality, what most of the people in the society do, look, and think. We really bear heeding here to these two extremes, however valuable proportion of population may be there. We always try to think that what most of the people's need is. We have never tried to understand or question this way of defining normality. Whether this concept of normality is there or it's just a hoax, it's just our way of understanding things, and stirred by what most of the people in the society do. That also is very, very important and crucial to understand, because if we go by this, then normality is very, very relative. Because what is normal today may not be normal tomorrow. What is normal here may not be normal there in other countries. And also normality is very, very changeable because it may not stay. However, it is important the way we tag things normal and not normal, because it impacts the way we look at the people who are a little bit different from this middle portion, the average going people. So according to me, there should be no term as normal or not normal per se. It should be just average going people or neurotypical people or typical people. Because if we try to conceptualize and define normality, it should be including all of the diversities, because these are natural diversities that we have found. Some were discovered, some were not. It may be there, it may not be there. We have not yet discovered so many other diversities as well. But these are part and parcel of our life, and these are part of our human milestones. Just that these are there, but because they are not as per the middle proportion or average, or most of the people what they do or how they look, that itself don't make sense that we have to call or tag these people as not normal. I'm going to take you to this particular story, which I feel, I don't know how many of you have read or heard of this story, which I found to be very, very interesting when it comes to, because see, if we really want to transcend the application, the the application of what is documented about inclusion, or the real application of inclusion of all of the parameters in the real life situation, we have to understand this philosophy very well, that we are not doing a privilege while including the people with disabilities. This is their right. This is their human right. Let's take up this small story, which will just take 2-3 minutes. I find this story amazing. This is one of those stories which will actually answer your question, if you are still questioning whether normality really exists or it's just a hoax. So this is a story written by H.G. Wells in 1904. There are other editions as well. Here there was a person named Nunes, and he was a mountaineer, and he wanted to scale the mountain, a fictitious mountain, say Uqueda. And when he went there, all of a sudden he just fall across the cliff, and he landed in a valley, a beautiful valley. After a while, he found or discovered that he has landed suddenly, coincidentally, in a very, very different. It was beautiful valley, but it was a very, very different valley. Why? Because the whole scenario, the structure of the houses and everything was completely different. How different it was? All of the roads, all of the houses were just totally congested together. There was no windows, no windows, and no panes from where the sunlight can enter. There were narrow panes, which was with curves where people can just walk around. There were people in the night who were walking. And soon it didn't take him much while to discover that he has landed in a country where nobody was sighted, everybody was blind. After a while, he was feeling a little bit happy, Nunes. He was repeating this proverb. Okay, in a country of blind, one with the one-eyed person is actually the king, can be a ruler. And so he was thinking of taking this advantage. And he also started taking that advantage. He went there and tried his all ways to make these people understand that, see, you don't have something and I have something which you don't have. And this is very important. And I can make important, significant changes in your life because I can see. He realized that these people, because of a disease, got infected, and eventually all of the people, those who were sighted, died. And thereafter, the people who were taking birth, they didn't have eyes. And that is why this valley became a country of blind. So his different ways of making these people understand just was very hopeless, because these people thought that he has just turned crazy, and he's not. He's just a crazy, funny person. And they found, and they thought that what we have to do is we have to remove the eye of this particular person, because this is the culprit, and this is the reason that he is saying all these, all these things which don't make sense, irrational things, because they were completely contented and satisfied. For those people without eye, he was not normal. And he was, yes, experiencing what you call seclusion, even with everything there intact. Soon after a while, because there was no choice, otherwise his eyes would be removed. So he got an affair with the head of the men, and he would just go to get married. And then the villagers told that, yes, on one condition you can get married, if you can remove your eyes. He also got conditioned with the way of thinking of these people that yes, they are saying right, and also accepted their proposal. However, just one day before the thing which was going to happen, the event which was going to happen, that his eyes will be removed and he will be getting married, he thought that no, I don't want this. I don't want to be blind and not able to see entire life. He got a lot of impetus and motivation at that particular time. And he escaped. He ran away from that land. And once he came across the mountain, whatever way, with a lot of struggle, because he was so keen and so eager and so motivated. And then he was completely relieved that, oh God, now I don't feel secluded. So then whether normality really exists or it's just a hoax, I'm talking in a verbal mode. How about if I start talking in, sign languages? Because this is one of those languages that can be easily understood by different peoples of different, country, people hailing from different countries. So just think if somebody all of a sudden starts talking through verbal mode, that person will be feeling secluded and maybe abnormal, because all of the rest people will be talking through sign language. You don't never know that what is going to happen after 10 years. Have you ever thought of such a pandemic ever, that we will be just locked inside our rooms and we are still going fine inside our rooms for the last 1.5 years? So we never know what is going to happen and who is going to experience normality, disease, or disability. So the better we understand these things, it is good for our society. This is one of the slides. Shamiji, just tell me, because where to stop. I can take a couple of more slides if you just allow me to. Maybe five.
Okay, ma'am, no problem. You can continue.
Okay, thank you. So this is another slide which I wanted to share, that see, these kind of differences or disability which we tag or term was always there in our society. However, how we utilize the different abilities of the disabilities, you see, the strengths of the disabled people as well, most creatively and strategically, that is a teacher's agenda and should be a teacher's agenda. So if you get a child, don't try to first identify the weak areas. I would say, of course, you have to identify the weak areas, but parallelly, you have to identify the strengths and try to address those deficits or weak areas through those strengths. I will give one example. Let me finish this. So, for example, if blindness was always there in the prehistoric period, however, it was taken care to understand the individual differences and how they learned differently and what were their ingenious traits, what they were good in, and facilitated and nurtured further. A real scenario example I'm giving you. This is, I'm just trying to make it a little visible. So these are my own pictures which I took. This was through my JSPS, where I went to NTUT, National Tsukuba University, which was in Ibaraki. So they have, this is one of the only university in Japan, and just one of the maybe very few universities in the world. There one I think I know about US, but there are not many, which is completely catering the higher educational needs of the people with disabilities. They have designed their course in such a way that they are basically offering those courses which are very, very attuned to the people with maybe vision impairment, hearing impairment, because they have identified those courses they are very good at. And they also offer placements for that. And there is a huge demand, not only from the country, but from other countries as well, to get the courses, because their entire university is completely dedicated to catering the needs of the people with hearing impairment and visual impairment most prominently, because this is what they started with. However, now they have also started with autism and other comorbidities as well. This is some of the pictures with me and the host faculties. This faculty, she is herself hearing impaired, uh, Yoko Kobayashi, and this is Hiraka. And this is Sandhya, one of my research colleague from TIS, Tata Institute of Social Science Research. And this is me. I was giving a lecture in Tsukuba. Sorry, this is Tokyo University. And there you see that there were all of the faculties also of Tsukuba University present. My host was present. And they are interpreting with sign language what I am teaching or delivering. And the same is being written automatically through the assistive technologies in the screen. So people with various disabilities were sitting together and they were able to access. So we are talking of these kind of accessibility. I will give you another example of accessibility. We just have to actually create that setting and environment. Then possibly we would be able to see that visibility that we are expecting. It's not the other way around, that they will come first and then we will start creating the setting. So sometime back, I went to the Blue Mountain in Australia, which is one of the very, very famous mountains, I think for a conference in 2009, long back. And I was with my husband and we were watching those Blue Mountain. Why this is Blue Mountain? It's just because we see it from a distance and all of its range of mountain and it looks like blue, blackish blue. And to my pretext, of course, it is beautiful. And all of a sudden, because I work in the area of disability, it caught my attention. There was something written in Braille. And I can see that those hoarding, whatever there is, that this is a Blue Mountain and something about that Blue Mountain were written. And those were written in Braille. At one go for few seconds, of course, this came to my mind also, honestly speaking, that really a visually impaired person is going to come here and see the Blue Mountain because it's a cliff. And the next moment, honestly, I don't know why, I found a person with a wheelchair there and who was blind with an interpreter. He was himself feeling the braille and making him understand. But at the same time, there was somebody who was also seeing the Blue Mountain and also narrating whatever clarification was required. So see, if you create that environment, now tell me whether this needs a lot of money. I was really surprised in 2009, because I was also very young then, that somebody thought of it. So just thinking of it is also so necessary, that there may be somebody who is blind, but that blind person also have aesthetic feeling. And that blind person also needs to see. Maybe these are just one or two slides. Then I will just put it off, cut it short. So the importance and significance of barrier-free environment for inclusive education is very, very foremost. Just take this one example. It may be very, very interesting for you. Rani Lakshmi Bai, yes, I am infatuated with this lady because I also stayed there. And in the army campus, when we were staying, we used to go and play. And sometimes there was a news that nobody can go to play because there is a lot of police and government officials there. And what was the reason? The reason was there that army was actually stretching its army cantonment because they were putting in more building. And while they were actually digging in, the soil, they came across a lot of pots of gold. And Jhansi ki Rani, and then all of the place in Jhansi is they're very historic. And we actually didn't get a chance to go there and see, but then we heard that they were all the pots of gold were taken and given to the government. Now, this is just a lighter mode. So if you think of Rani Lakshmi Bai, think of the plight, think of the kind of what you call the strength that she sparks, the vibes that she creates, her life creates. Now, hailing from Maratha, and the way that she fought was unparalleled. I think there is none that we can cite as a parallel example. If you see, you will find some more people from the Marathas. For example, Jijabai, Jankibai, Kashibai, Putlabai. And these were all those who also showed some or the other such plights, such strong, activities during that time. So just think the way Lakshmibai used to drape the sari. Just draping the sari in that way, of course, is very crucial. You can't fight if you're wearing a sari like the way that traditional people wear in Bengal, maybe. So if you really want women to get empowered, of course, the first step is to create that environment. Just wearing the sari, draping that sari in a very noble way, that the way that Maratha people wear, which is called Nawari sari. They dress it like a man. And it is like tight close to their body. So this is called Maharashtrian style. And this is so practical. This is, of course, I'm not saying this is the reason that Lakshmibai became, but this is, of course, very, very, very important. One of the very important aspects that we have got so many brave women from this particular regions. So removing the architectural barriers and creating a barrier-free environment in the classroom, in the school, in the educational institution, and having the attitude and understanding of including these people, not as just the narrow meaning of inclusion, placing them with us, but how to strategically and creating ways to include these people so that ensure their full participation is something which I am talking about when I am talking of inclusion. So equality and equity. Of course, this is a very, very common example, which you will find pictures rolling around in the internet. But this is something very, very crucial when we talk of inclusion, whether we need equality or whether we need equity. So this is equality and this is equity. When we want to include, if we want to ensure the equal participation of the people with disabilities, of course, we have to come way forward and beyond equality and provide access in terms of equity. We need personalization. We need individualization. We need unified instruction, and we need multisensory approaches. Because we don't know. In the earlier slide, yes, this was something which is multisensory approach. And also, we have to, as a teacher, have to be flexible. We can't ask all of these people when all of these people is, these are all natural variation of human. Just giving example. So somebody might be A, B, C, blah, blah, blah. But everybody will not be a good swimmer. And we can't ask everybody to climb the tree. We have to identify who is good at what. We can't just structure our answers. We can't expect a very structured answer. We have to have that mind and attitude to welcome things out of our boxes, which we haven't seen, and play with those creations, play with those new creations coming up from these young minds. Believe me, they will come up with beautiful, amazing ideas, because they will bring those indigenous ideas which are from their culture, from their backward classes, and which can make a whole lot of a difference, which can create history, which can solve so many problems of inclusion, not only inclusion, of so many problems of life in a different way. So it's a learning experience vis-a-vis. It's not just me imparting education, but also they will come up and teach us. So this is just last slide. And there are some of these kind of scenarios that we will find. One of my colleague and friend, who is Dr. Satyendra, he will find this man with a lot of awards. Right now, he is also an activist. He made the vote platforms accessible in Delhi. He is also a doctor. He's a polio victim. However, when he was called to get awarded, he found to his nightmare that where he was to sit separately from his family, from his wife and children, because there was no ramp. There is this rail, but people don't understand the importance of this, so they have actually decorated with pots. So even if there is a person with disability, that person will not be able to use this. At the same time, how much insulting it is to even touch without a permission. And you are taking a person with disability in your lap and putting, just like a thing. How much it impacts if somebody have to touch my body without my permission. These are some of the very, very crucial issues that we have to think. So inclusion is not just, can come over in one go. It is a process. Maybe this last slide is important. I'm going to take this one. This is one of our projects where we found this was done layback. However, you see that, of course, during that time, polio was one of the most important reasons for locomotor disabilities. And in our data, we found that most of the people were, of course, victim of polio. Forget about polio here. Just see the other parameters, the other causes of locomotor disabilities, and you will find there is large proportion of disability which is preventable. You are able to see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And if you see the below poverty line and also the women malnutrition rate, you will be able to see this association which I am talking of. That there is a very, very vicious cycle, one leading to another, when we talk of women with disabilities, poverty, malnutrition. There is a very, very high rate of people with disabilities below poverty line. And it has to do a lot with women education, health, nutrition, women being anemic. I'm going to end up with these two slides. During our project, this was UGC project that we interviewed nearly 100 women, and she's one of those. I just want to make, few things, as we are, the neurotypical peoples are very, very fond of tagging people as normal and not normal or disabled. Who is disabled and who is non-disabled? I think I really have to question this as well. She is 90% disabled, Mithu Das. Her name is pseudonym here. So you find that she, with a lot of odds, she completed somehow her class 10, and then she had to drop out. And the reason was that because she became so heavy, it was not it was very difficult for her to go across all of the classes to do the class. And that is why after a while she has to just drop out. And she had a lot of ambition of doing something for herself, for other women, for her family, because she was the only bread earner of her family. Her brother just left home, not taking care of the mother. She used to do all of the household chores, earning the bread, earning the livelihood, do all of the household chores with 90% disabilities. She was teaching tailoring to all of the women around in the village. She wanted to open up a training institute coming to the cities. Just think about the ambition of this women and then compare with a lot many neurotypical women having all of everything intact as well, that God has given us. But still they may, question their ability. So the question of ability and disability and whom to tag as able and disabled, we really need to question this, I think. And conversely, I am giving another example. This is very important example. I'm making it a little bigger. This is Anjali Forber Pratt. I'm very fortunate that I met this woman at Indiana, US, when I went as a first-time Fulbright scholar in 2011-12 at Indiana University. And she is important because she is right now the she was a faculty a few days back. Also, she was a faculty of Vanderbilt University. She did a PhD on herself, on her life. She is a polio victim. She is a world famous Paralympic. She is right now, just few days back, she became the Disability Center Director at Washington, D.C. So she left her job as a professor at Vanderbilt. Interestingly, she was adopted from Kolkata NGO by American parent, even knowing that she was a polio victim. And the kind of life, the environment that they provided, not only she was adopted, another boy was also adopted, and they both were adopted, and they are brother and sister. They are doing amazing. Ian is also is a center director as a social worker, and she's amazing. She has been, I mean, the whole family is amazing. And this is not just one example that you will find in US, in some of the states, for example, Texas, where you will find many of such families who have adopted people with disabilities or children with disabilities from different developing countries, including China, India. It's not that they didn't had child. They had child. Some also had child with disabilities, but they just think and believe that they have more infrastructure. They have the attitude. They know much how to take care of a person with disabilities, and that is the reason they have adopted another person with disabilities. Now, these kind of scenarios is very difficult for us to even imagine. We won't believe, but these are facts. Why this is important? Because the kind of environment that she has got is what she is today. We can, of course, 100% say that if this girl was staying here, and all of the intersecting factors of a developing country, whether it's a question, I won't just decide on my own, but it's a question, and it's doubtful whether she would have become what she is today. So the impact of environment is important. And the last thing which I just want to give to you a little bit, you should know now, because the whole world is revolving around neurodiversity. And neurodiversity is a term which is coined by Judy Singer, who is autistic, an Australian. And it means neurodiversity, it embraces any kind of diversity with respect. And it claims acceptance and embrace of any kind of disability, claiming any kind disabilities such as autism also as just as human variation. So it is a shift from the medical model to social model, and now to neurodiverse model. Gone are the days of eugenics, when it was decided that we just want hybrid genes, kill them up. Gone are the days of Hitler and all those eugenics, that you have to just select conditionally only those genes which will give birth to very healthy offsprings. So gone are those days of eugenics. We are talking of this era when we really want, there are families and parents who don't mind bearing and rearing a child with disability, provided they get this kind of positive environment that we are expecting. And the future direction, there is a lot of things, lot of pedagogical strategies which are there, which I can take sometime later if there is another seminar, which because it will take another 1 hour. I'm not going to go with it, but just for your sake, you should know that applied behavioral analysis is one of the signs of interventions that can be applied to bring about effective changes in a person's behavior, and all those are socially approved. It can be very, very important how we do things, and how as a teacher, and the way that we can approach a child, his learning, the way that we identify or assess his abilities and disabilities as well, and how we can go about it. So this is applied behavioral analysis. There is a huge content and strategies which are very, very important for the teachers to know, which can become so handy. And if there is any opportunity later, I can take this up later sometime. So thank you so much. I believe, yes, first of all, don't take me otherwise. I am very proud of being an Indian, hailing from soldier's family. My father was in army. Of course, I am very proud about my country. However, when it comes to, yes, about the historic privilege that we had, however, the present scenario is very gloomy. And when I talk about the people with disabilities, and when I talk of see the scenario of inclusion, I don't feel happy, because I can see that the world has gone way forward. And when they are there, we will still be here. It's a long way to go. And finish it off with just saying this two lines, that just by accepting, respecting, and rejoicing diversity, we can solve many of the problems of inclusion or seclusion in society. Thank you so much.
Amazing, ma'am. Thank you so much to Professor Santoshi Halder for giving such adorable and admirable lecture. We all benefited by this lecture. That was so amazing session. Again, thank you, ma'am. Now the thank you, ma'am. Now the question and answer session will be start. Any question from the house? Just we don't have so much time, so one or two question. Please.
So may I ask a question?
Yes, Shonak can ask.
Ma'am,
Yes, go ahead.
by what I understand, there is a central issue here, which is around the concept of normalcy. Ma'am, in the
Sure.
modern day, how can we construct an inclusive definition of normalcy?
Okay, so this is your question, that how we can. Now, I would like to address this question or respond to this question in this way, as you must have gone through, or if you must have understood my entire theme, that I really don't want that there is something called tag of normality. Why we really have to define normality? There is a milestone kind of a chart which is given when we give birth, and we all know that our parents also, they become so irritated and so stressed and anxious if we our children are not going by those typical milestones, and because otherwise that means my child is deviated. So there is a whole lot of scare which prevails in the mind of the people, that nobody wants to get deviated, you see. And why this is so? Because there is this concept of normality. If there is no concept of normality at all, I don't think that there will be such anxiousness also. Why we really need to tag? Whether tag is essential. For example, see, আমাদের এখানে যখনই আমরা স্কুলে যাই, কি ধরনের ডিসেবিলিটি, ফাইন, যে কেউ হচ্ছে ভিজুয়ালি ইম্পেয়ার্ড, কেউ হচ্ছে লার্নিং ডিসেবলড. Now tell me what kind of difference it is going to make in your teaching learning strategies just by this, if you get this kind of a tag, যে অমুক হচ্ছে learning disabled কিংবা অমুক হচ্ছে autistic. I think what is important is, of course, if you want to tag, that is your way of understanding. But as a teacher educator, I would like to know a complete profile of that particular person, trying to understand the strengths and the weak areas where I have to actually address or have to ponder. Those are the areas which will give me a foresight or a content and help me out. Okay, so these are the deficits and these are the areas. I will just give one example here, because I work very closely with autistic people. So there is this child, you know that the autistic people have a lot of stereotypy, they are very obsessed with repeated behaviors. So this child, the parent is coming and complaining that my child is always playing with the engines, the trains, and he's never with numbers. How can I teach numbers to him? Now this stereotypy of repeated behaviors have been, there is a lot of controversy, first of all, that whether this should be there, whether we should get rid of. 90% of the teacher want to first start the teaching learning of the autistic people by getting rid of their stereotypy. But you know, as a good teacher, what I would do as a behavior analyst, I would try to intervene and design an intervention program or education intervention program of infusing these two. Why not teaching numericals through the engines? So how you can address those deficits through the strengths, that is very important. Do we really need to tag somebody like normal and not normal? This is again a question that you again have to answer yourself, that how much this actually impacts, whether this is necessary, and how this is going to impact the future course of action.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sorry, Shonok, if I'm being reasonable enough to answer your query.
Not at all, ma'am. Yes, you are. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
ম্যাডামকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি। আজকে সময়ের স্বল্পতার কারণে আমরা আর বেশি কোয়েশ্চেনও গ্রহণ করতে পারছি না। তাও স্টুডেন্টদের উদ্দেশ্যে একটা কথা জানাই, তোমাদের যদি কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন থাকে আমাদেরকে মেসেজ করবে, আমরা ম্যাডামকে সেটা ফরওয়ার্ড করে দেবো, পরে আমরা ম্যাডামের কাছ থেকে সেই অ্যান্সার নিয়ে নেব। ধন্যবাদ ম্যাডাম। এবার আমরা আমাদের থ্যাংক ইউ ম্যাম। এবার আমরা আমাদের অনুষ্ঠানের অন্তিম পর্যায়ে এসে উপস্থিত হয়েছি। এখন আজকের অনুষ্ঠানের ধন্যবাদ জ্ঞাপনের জন্য আমি আমাদের কলেজেরই বরিষ্ঠ অধ্যাপক ডক্টর অভিজিৎ গুহ মহাশয়কে অনুরোধ করব। স্যার।
Thank you, Sumen. It's my great privilege to extend the vote of thanks. First of all, we extend our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Santoshi Halder for agreeing to talk on inclusive pedagogy for teacher educators, psychological and educational basis. She has nicely deliberated with her knowledge and experience on the issues of inclusion and pedagogy. She talked about scenario of inclusions in India, the ecological system theory, some notable facts impacting PWD, inequalities in Indian society in various aspects, quality of life index, status of disability and conditions of disability, story of normality by H. Wells, how to use abilities of disabled from equality to equity, role of teachers, and many other aspects of this topic. So we extend our heartfelt gratitude to Santoshi ma'am for her deliberation, for her enriching lecture. It is also our pleasure to extend thanks to the Principal Maharaj, Vice Principal Maharaj, and Controller of Exam Maharaj for arranging this webinar with a very relevant topic for today. Our colleagues has played a crucial role to organize this seminar and make it successful. So thanks also due to them. Our heartfelt thanks to the participants also of this webinar who attended and have given patience sharing. Our students, our scholars, and our guests were there in this webinar. Our thanks to them also. We expect that the discussion deliberated by Professor Santoshi ma'am will benefit all the persons who have attended these, listened these, and will benefit them in academic as well as practical and application purpose. Thanks to all. Thank you.
স্যারকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ। আজকের অনুষ্ঠানের সমস্ত বিদ্বজ্জন আমার সহকর্মীবৃন্দ এবং আমার স্নেহের শিক্ষার্থীদের আন্তরিক শ্রদ্ধা, ধন্যবাদ ও কৃতজ্ঞতা জানিয়ে আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানের সমাপ্তি ঘোষণা করলাম। প্রত্যেকে ভালো থাকবেন, সুস্থ থাকবেন এবং কোভিড এই প্রোটোকল মেনে চলবেন। ধন্যবাদ।